Before starting this video, I do want to give a shout out to my patrons that support the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you if you want to look at the Patreon link down below. So with that out of the way, let's get into this week's video. What's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG. Glad to have you here. Today I'm going to go over the newest and latest version of Etali Primal Conqueror. This is an amazing new Elder Dinosaur for 7 mana. We do have a trample, and when Etali Primal Conqueror enters the battlefield, each player exiles from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among those non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. You can pay 9 and a Phyrexian green mana to transform Etali. You could only activate it as a sorcery, but this actually turns into Etali Primal Sickness. They got my boy, the Phyrexians got my boy Etali, but this is a really cool version of Etali. It does have trample and indestructible and has a Blightsteel Colossus effect. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. It is pretty much just straight up infect, I mean besides the wither ability on creatures, but honestly this version of Etali is super sick. So let's focus on the game plan with Etali. He is huge, I mean he is 7 mana, so he's going to be a lot to cast out, but luckily we are in green, so we do have a good ramp package like Rampant Growth, Farseek, Nature's Lore, and 3 Visits. I do like more efficient mana spells like these because you can get them out early in the game and ramp ahead from your opponents, so these are definitely great includes. Not going to completely touch on the ramp package too much. There's a lot of other ramp spells, but we do have a lot of haste enablers. I want to make sure Etali's swinging in and swinging fast because, so luckily we are in Gruul colors. There's a lot of great options like Rhythm of the Wild, Fires of Yavimaya, and Urabrask the Hidden. I just love Rhythm of the Wild so much. I slot it in many of my Gruul decks because I don't want my creatures to be countered. This is just a great way so that your creatures can't be countered, so that they can come in, swing in as well, because they can get haste on top of that. Also, they did release this new version of Urabrask the Hidden. Absolutely incredible art right here, no question about it. That's why I wanted to add in this list. Plus, with Urabrask the Hidden, what I really like about this card is a lot of your opponent's creatures are going to enter the battlefield tapped, so that Etali can swing into your opponents uncontested. However, let's take a focus on the theme of this deck. So we're going to be playing a Play from Exile theme because of Etali's ETB. So when it does enter the battlefield, you'll be able to play opponent's spells from Exile essentially. So we could take advantage of that in many different ways. So one way we could abuse Etali is by copying him with a token. I know the legendary rule will apply, so that token will die. However, since that ETB is super strong, we want to make sure we get that ETB as much as possible. So I thought of cards like Twin Flame, Heat Shimmer, and Splinter Twin so that we could get that effect continuously. These are just a great way if you want to use that ETB ability again without sacrificing your Etali. We did also receive a new card with Ortheon, Hero of Lavabrink. I probably pronounced that wrong, but for 4 mana we do have a legendary creature, Human Soldier. It does have pay 2 and tap it. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. And for 9 mana you could tap it and create 5 tokens that are copies of another target creature you control. They gain haste, sacrificing them at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. Because of the legendary rule, we can't keep those tokens, but again, we want that ETB. We definitely want that big effect so that we could get a lot of power out of that. But when we do play from Exile, we have a lot of great effects in the deck right here. We want to make sure that we could get a lot of value for our commander, so we do have Keeper of Secrets. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. In a similar fashion, we do have Passionate Archaeologist for 2 mana. It has an ability where commander creatures you control have, whenever you cast a spell from Exile, this creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. So we're going to be casting 4 spells at a time when an ETB with Etali's trigger. This could definitely inflict some serious damage to your opponents. I also did think of Wild Magic Sorcerer. For 4 mana, we do have a first spell you cast from Exile each turn has Cascade. So I do think this is going to be a great ability for the deck because we're going to have a lot of different spells that play from Exile. So we don't want to just rely on our commander's ETB to play from Exile, so some other cards that I thought about was Escape to the Wilds. For 5 mana, you have an Exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may play cards exiled this way until the end of your next turn, and you may play an additional land this turn. This card provides so many advantages. Say for example you don't have any lands in your hand and you're missing a land drop, you could definitely play this card, and then on top of that you could play 2 lands that were exiled from the cards that you exiled that turn. This card's definitely a sleeper and I absolutely love it. Another card that I did think about is a good Wrath ability with Delayed Blast Fireball. For 3 mana you get to deal 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control, and if it was played from exile you could deal 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. It does have that foretell ability, but if we're playing from exile we don't necessarily need to foretell it, so this is definitely a great one-sided Wrath effect against your opponents for sure. So next up we do have a great play from exile effect with Nafishini. I cannot pronounce that correctly, you could roast me in the comments for that for sure. It has flying, and whenever you cast a spell from exile you copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it was a permanent spell, the copy gains haste, and at the beginning of the end step sacrifice this permanent. So in Etali ETBs we can cast 4 different things from exile, and so we get to copy those even further with this card right here. Absolutely fantastic to include. But now let's take a step back from exile. Let's talk about power. Etali is huge. It's a 7/7, so we want to get in for some commander damage, and even if we get into the backside we could get a Blightsteel effect. That's more unlikely, but still it's a great effect if we can get to it. But we do have some great abilities to double the power of Etali. So we do have Zapandrel, Hunger Dominus, and Unnatural Growth. Both of these cards essentially read at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Of course Etali does have trample, so we can trample over our opponents with that. We can make Etali a 14/14 or a 22/22 on the backside. I know that's a little overkill with the poison counters, but if you're rushing in you want to swing into your opponents, you want to make sure you can kill them efficiently. In a similar fashion, we could amp up the power of Etali by using Xenagos, God of Rebels for 5 mana. We could give a creature haste, and on top of that, we could give a creature +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the creature's power at the beginning of our combat. So of course, this is just a great include into a big stompy Gruul list for sure. But if you did want to add a combo in here, this is one of my favorite combos in Commander. It's a high-powered combo with Food Chain. The big reason why I added this combo into this list is because of Etali's amazing ability to enter the battlefield. Each player exiles the top card of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. So with Etali's ETB in mind, we're going to have Food Chain on the battlefield. Then we need a Food Chain creature like Squee the Immortal, for example. So essentially what you'll do with this combo is you'll exile Squee the Immortal with Food Chain to generate 4 red mana. You'll pay 3 to cast Squee the Immortal from exile. You'll have 1 red mana left, and then you could repeat this process to gain infinite mana just for creatures. So with infinite mana, you could cast Etali from the command zone to the battlefield, and then with Food Chain, you could exile Etali so that you could put Etali back to your command zone so that you can play him again. So you can do this as many times as you would like. You can exile all the non-land permanents and all the decks in the game, and eventually when you're playing spells with Etali's ETB, you can find something like Passionate Archaeologist so that you can continue the Food Chain loop. So when you do have Passionate Archaeologist on the battlefield and your commander on the battlefield, we'll go back to that Squee combo. They'll continuously cast Squee from exile with Food Chain so that you can have Passionate Archaeologist trigger so that you can deal damage to your opponents to win the game. So I know it's not the fanciest combo, but it is a combo you could run in this deck. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Etali Primal Conqueror and Etali Primal Sickness. I didn't really focus on the backside so much because it is 10 mana to activate. It is 9 and a Phyrexian mana if you want to pay into the Phyrexian mana. But essentially it is really hard to cast, and if you do pull it off, great, that's good for you, and then you can swing away to win the game that way. But again, it's really hard and really challenging to pull that off. That's why I wanted to focus more on the front side and the abilities you can do and the gameplay you want to have with it. However, let me know down below, what are your thoughts about this new version of Etali? I absolutely love it. Unfortunately, he had to die in the process to get this card, but honestly, it's absolutely amazing. Definitely one I may consider building myself because I love Etali and I love dinosaurs. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. That's definitely the best way to support the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.